This was a fun episode with my friend Cassandra Claude, who teaches artists how to treat their business like a real business. Watch and or listen while we tackle tough and sometimes taboo topics filmed live over drinks. This platform allows us to articulate our thoughts and challenge our beliefs. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy. All right, we are live. This is SipTalk, episode 256. My name is Justin DiGiulio, joined by James the Boswell and Cassandra Claude, author of A Singer's Compass, music and entrepreneurship professor at University of Miami, vocal coach, founder of Artistic Freedom Mentorship Program. Yes. Cassandra, nice to have you. Welcome to SipTalk. Thank you. So I gotta ask you guys, Cassandra, you can lead. What are you guys drinking tonight?
Oh, water.
All right. Well, I'm gonna start with a beer here. James, what do you have over there to drink?
It's technically a beer, but it's closer to water. It's a natural light.
I'm drinking Michelob Ultra, so I'm in the same.
Oh, that's we're all drinking water.
I'm in the same boat. So we have Cassandra on, and Cassandra and I met about 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Almost exactly 2 months, the end of June, at the Blocks.
Yes.
Small business startup, entrepreneurship, business workshop.
Yeah.
Effectively, that was also a reality show. We don't know when that'll hit the air, but check out the Blocks. Check out Cassandra. Follow her. Where can people follow you?
So my Instagram is Sassy Classy Cassie. I wish it was like just, well, I actually love it the way that it is, but it's not some fancy professional name, but Sassy Classy Cassie.
All right. That's your Instagram name. So we're going to talk a little bit about your business today, which I didn't learn too much about. We had one class together in the Blocks.
It's all, I don't remember, but
it was a lot. It was a very intense.
We spoke quite a bit. Yeah.
It was a very intense week. Just a lot of information. For some reason, like a lot of emotion too. Did you get that feeling? A lot of emotion in this?
Definitely.
It was like nerves in the beginning, little anxiety, a lot of nerves, and then it kind of just transformed into like, I don't know. We drank the Kool-Aid. We're definitely like.
Why do you think there was a lot of emotion?
Well, it's your baby. Like everybody was there, just to give it their all for the business that they started, so I think in some way you're connected to it emotionally. So, when someone's critiquing it or you're getting on and you're on the spot with the timer and a camera in your face and all of this happening all at once, all of a sudden there's just so much coming up at that moment in front of people watching it, so I think it was an undertaking for sure that week. It was exciting too, but it was an undertaking.
It was just you had so much going on. You had 100 plus people that you had to learn and get to know, and then also you had to be able to define your product,
right,
whether it's product, service, and you had the cameras, and you had to do all this kind of on the spot. It was a contest, so that it was very challenging in that respect. And we were all, what I thought brought us a lot together as we went through this process of the anxiety and the figuring it out all together.
Right.
And that's why I say, like, drink the Kool-Aid. We all just kind of ended up, it wasn't culty like we were doing kind of weird chanting and stuff, but it was culty in the sense that like we were all, almost everybody was 110% like bought in.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really cool, I've told people this, I told James this too. He doesn't believe me, I don't think. But I said I watched every season. I watched all the episodes every season. At the end of every single season, all the contestants said, wow, it was like a family. These people are like my friends for life. And I thought to myself, that's such bullshit. And then on day 5, I was like, oh, now I see what they're talking about. Like we have some really strong connections. And we went through this as entrepreneurs and business people. And we were able to share the experience of doing this together, but also the experiences of building our businesses, which you can't exactly share with the people that are part of your business.
Right.
Like especially if your business is in really rough shape or you're not sure about things, you don't want to pass that on to the other people in the business. So I want to get into more about your business, but tell me a little more about your experience. Like, what did you get out of? What did you not have when you showed up at the blocks, and then what did you leave with when you left?
Well, I mean, really connecting the aspect of like going into the branding, and probably the way to discuss my company. It's such in the beginning stages, but discussing the company, getting out of presenter's dilemma. I'm so passionate about it, and just kind of like,
What's
driving
presenter's
my
dilemma?
Say again?
What's presenter's dilemma?
Oh, it's just oh gosh, here it goes again, because this is exactly what it was like on the blocks. Like, what is it right now? So presenter's dilemma is when you are talking to someone about your company, about your brand, but you're all these steps ahead of them. So you're speaking with passion, you're speaking with conviction, and you're loving it, and you're saying all of these things, and they're just not quite getting it. So, and you're just, and you're losing them, basically, because you're so passionate. You're like 3 steps, 10 steps ahead of them, and they're still trying to just understand what you do. So yeah.
You have a much better grasp on what it is that you do than the receiving party. So you got
So it'd be kind of like if you're trying to teach physics to second graders, you're not going to go into like deep quantum field theorem. You're going to talk about like why a ball bounces.
Yeah, the very basic stuff. And you that sounds very common sense. Like you would jump in and talk about the very basics, but when you are passion driven within your company, it's surprisingly, it's something that we all suffer from. And I think a lot of us were talking about that quite a bit on the blocks. And it's just like a lot of things that were just like really interesting to see, some of the software stuff that I didn't really know about, things to do and put in with the website. And there were a lot of things that I just learned. And I came in feeling like I was a strong entrepreneur, and like, and there were so many like things that were just like thrown at me. And I was just like, oh, wait a second. I have a lot of work to do.
So the presenter's dilemma, to me, it sounds kind of like, and you can find this in practically like any skill-based thing, whether it's a sport or music or whatever, is you could have someone that's very, very good at what they do, playing an instrument, playing a sport or whatever, but they would be terrible at teaching it.
Right.
And then you could have somebody that maybe is not quite as skilled, but knows how to convey to like introductory level things to people. And so like skill doesn't always correlate perfectly with ability to convey messages.
Exactly. And so we were talking about that as far as selling the company. When you meet someone and you're networking, how do you sell your company, but in a place that you're meeting them and what we called, like, what was it, the crocodile brain? You're talking to like their, the part of their mind where they're just wanting to not run away.
The instant you start talking to somebody, they're going to have a reaction. Right. And that's what I call the lizard brain. They call it the crocodile brain. I don't know, maybe it's a Midwest thing. But as soon as you start telling somebody about your business, do they tune it out? Are they feeling like you're trying to sell them? But how are they receiving it? But so I'm going to put you on the spot with the presenter's paradox.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I am going to have you tell me, because you do a handful of things. Mm-hmm. But tell me what it is. Well, you're author.
Well, I mean, yes.
You're a music and entrepreneurship professor.
Yeah.
At a university. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then you are a vocal coach. And you also have a mentorship, founder of Artistic Freedom Mentorship Program. So those are 4 very different things. I'm sure there's a common element. But so tell me what it is what do you do and what value do you bring to this world?
Yeah, so they all fall underneath mentorship, right? And so I had a vision to really be able to connect with an artist, mainly musicians, because that's my industry. So working with musicians to get them to stay the course, right? Look at themselves as a business, working through that, but also getting through the vulnerable parts of working through the industry. Okay. All the emotional, it's hard basically, and how to get them to stay in line. Right. Because that was my overall vision. It aligned with, well, I'm going to write a book about it, and then it aligned with, well, now I'm going to open up a mentorship program, and I'm teaching already. So it all comes together. So I have a lot of titles. I do. And a lot of times when people are, introducing me and stuff like that, they say all of these titles. But in my mind, I know that it came with one big vision, and all of those just fall underneath the vision
So
of mentorship.
let me ask you, what's the major difference between the professorship and the mentorship?
Well, it's still all mentoring and teaching. It's still all coaching.
Well,
Now,
I'm asking more specific, I guess, to clarify the question, kind of the curriculum.
Well, the curriculum is different only because the artistic freedom mentorship, it's right now it's a 12-week program. So we get into the vulnerability, we get into the blocks that you might have in the industry, right? In the entrepreneurship side, we're working more of the mindset, because when I'm dealing with musicians, a lot of the times, especially at the university where I'm teaching, they're so good, right? They're so strong. And all they do and all they know is about practice and being amazing performers, right? And they forget the mindset of showing up as a business for themselves, the networking, the experience, the financial part, the organization, and all of that. So
yeah, okay. So I mean, I think kind of the biggest, and maybe I'm right on this. You tell me. I'm blurry here. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I would think probably the biggest dilemma for an artist is that most of them go in with this mindset that if I'm great, I will find my break, I will get lucky, and then I'll skyrocket to success, because that's what everybody else does. You didn't hear about them one day, and then Friday they got a #1 selling platinum record. But I think it's, and I'm kind of repeating this to you to make sure that I understand it. But it sounds like there's a lot more that goes into being a successful artist, meeting people, and basically putting yourself out there to be lucky, and then to be able to identify the luck when it crosses your path.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once you identify a talent, or a want, you automatically start, or should start, taking classes, right? Just like an athlete, if you see potential in someone, the first thing they do is get a coach, right? So it's that you're getting a coach, you're getting that, and then you go into the experience, putting yourself on stage more, speaking more, or whichever, right? And then you get into the networking aspect, is to just meeting people in the industry. So I think it's deeper than just being great, but also you're putting yourself out there for critiques. It's a hard industry, and it's brave to get into it. Very, very brave. So in like for my program, we talk a lot about that aspect too. So you decided to go into this world, right? How do you feel safe in your decision, right? How do you feel and know that, well, you'll make a living? How do you go in with that thought, like you're going to be okay? And then we start going into all of like the things that just come at you that can break you down.
Well, do you remember the conversation we had in the blocks? Not you and I, but it was like in one of the classes about runway.
No.
So what they're saying is when you have your business, you have so much runway left, like a plane, where you either need to take off or you're going to crash and burn. And that could be financially, it could be emotionally, it could be a myriad of different things. But I imagine that a lot of people in the arts are getting into this, and you said that they're going to be okay, they're going to be able to make a living. But I imagine a lot of them aren't going, maybe in the long run they could, but in the short run will not, and thus they won't be able to have a long run.
Well, exactly. So like, and I say this to many of my students, it's hard to do what you love, which is especially in the industry, it's hard to go in that direction, but it's also hard not to, right? So in the end, you're choosing your heart. So if you're going in the direction of the industry, and I'm going to speak mainly towards music, if you're going in the music direction, going into the music industry, yeah, it's going to be difficult. But do you have the resilience, like those keys? That's what my program really talks about. Like, do you have the keys to really deal with anything that comes your way that you might crash and burn? You might feel that. And in the short run, if things aren't happening the way that you would like for them to happen, like how can we go around that? How do we have different, ways of making money and that sustains you and stability and all of that? So it's just, there's a lot of thought and layers. Like you got to think of yourself as an entrepreneur.
So, James, have we talked about Dunning-Kruger? I think you and I have talked about this theory.
Yeah, it's an accusation I've lobbed your way multiple times.
So, Cassandra, Dunning-Kruger is a theory that basically, when you know very little about something, you overestimate your ability, and then as you learn more, you realize that you have very little knowledge of something.
Well, James, it's more like it's a curve where, like, when you first start out, you know that you don't know anything, so your confidence is low because you know you don't know anything. Once you start to learn a little bit, now you think you know a lot more than you do, so you're very overconfident. And then when you start to learn more, your confidence actually craters again because you realize how out of your depth you are. And then once you start to make your way towards expertise, then your confidence goes back up and is more or less commensurate with your actual skill.
Yeah. I imagine that's got to hit really hard for people that once they kind of, and I imagine in this scenario, knowing a little bit would be, I have a voice, I can sing. People seem to respond well.
I did well at karaoke night.
Yeah. So let me ask you that first. How many, I don't know if you want to answer it, but how many people come to you that just suck? That like you have to like have to work really hard to come to them on the right day and break their heart in a way that doesn't make them want to jump off the top floor.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Because I know it has to happen. So
okay.
You sure you don't want to switch from that water?
So first of all, I would say about 90+% of the people that come my way are extremely talented. Okay. And the ones that are okay, and know that they are okay and they have to work a little bit harder, it doesn't mean that their ability to pursue the arts and succeed is lower than the one that comes in that's very, very talented. I hope that makes sense. And when someone comes in and they're not great at matching pitch and all of that stuff, I work with them. If that's what they want to do and they want to do it for themselves, it goes a little bit deeper at that point of just, okay, we're making you a star. And sometimes they're coming in just to, like, it's almost like therapy, and they're just releasing like anything that they're going through in life. And they're just like, I want to sing. Singing makes me feel better. And I'm like, okay, well, let's sing. And that's like about 2% of like the people that I work with. For the most part, the people that I work with are pro, semi-pro, or likely to get into that like direction. Yeah.
So then my question on the business side of things would be, how does somebody encounter you? How do they know that how do they find out they have a need for someone like you? And then at what point are you running social media ads? You put flyers on telephone poles. How are people discovering your service?
At this point, it's been word of mouth. Some people have found me by just, a Google search, and they, come across my page. And I've gotten quite a few people from Instagram, from social media. But for the most part, it's been word of mouth. I've been doing this long enough, and I do quite a few master classes. So I travel and I do all these master classes, and, I'm a clinician and a judge here and there. And so by now I've worked with thousands of singers, thousands of people, or I'm, or adjudicating, and my signatures on so many things. So at that point, they might remember something that I said, or decided to look me up because they knew that I was adjudicating that day.
So you don't have a ton of promotion that you're pushing. You're not actively trying very hard to promote.
Besides me doing things in person, that's for the most part what I'm doing. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
James, you have some questions you want to throw out
I
there?
sure do. The first one is when in general, I know that this is like I'm asking for kind of like a summary, and everyone's going to be different. But like for the people that you work with, what are the skills that you find in general are most lacking among them? Like obviously not the music skills, because like if they're coming to you, they've got to be musically talented, but you need more than that to succeed. And what are the skills that you find in general are most lacking?
Yeah, the entrepreneurial skill, and also as far as like organization and their money, the financial part of it, and also the resilience.
What
Some
can you define entrepreneurial skill a little bit more?
Yeah, the mindset of just knowing that they need to do more than just practicing all the time, right? So there's just, there's deeper. There's so much more to that. So they have to understand the financial part of it. They need to understand their taxes. They need to understand all of these things. And when we get into taxes, that's when they're really uncomfortable. But also,
That fits with my experience because I was the tax guy for many years.
yeah,
And I can tell you that, like, of the clients I had that were creative in some nature, they were the most disorganized
right.
and least informed when it came to anything tax related.
They
They,
are.
they,
And
they
I'm
were a
not
nightmare to work with because, like, they never had any records,
right.
and they had no idea how much money they made. They had no idea what their expenses were, and
Right.
so it would just be a mess to sort out.
Yeah, and that's what's tough because their minds, and I'm not just sticking up for them, but like the mindset is really just making money. So if they're gigging here, there, and everywhere, they have a 1099 from this person and 1099 from that person, and sometimes it's under the table, and it's all over the place. Their thoughts need to be like, okay, I got this money here. Let me write this down. There has to be some organization.
Yeah,
And a
and
lot
there
of
would be times where like they couldn't like they didn't even know how much money they made.
Exactly. And at this point, because they're just happy to make money.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's where their thoughts tend to be. They're happy to make money. They're happy that they can pay their bills and, have a good time on the side,
Yeah, no, I would just get like, here's my personal bank account, figure it out. And I was like, that's
Right.
not good enough, man.
So
Like,
so
first of all,
here
you need to keep your business and your personal separate. You're not doing that.
the three of us know what's going on, but for the layman who's not really understanding why we're still talking about this, when you're making money, especially 1099, the taxes have not been taken out of it. So at the end of the year, the IRS is going to want their cut. Okay, so you have to know how much money you made because that bill is coming from the IRS, because the people that sent you the 1099s are declaring that they gave you money. So the IRS knows you got the money, whether you tell the IRS or not. And then the other side is you need to be saving your expenses so that you know what you have paid into your business and invested in your business, because a certain amount of that in certain categories is going to be something that you can write off. So if you made $100,000 and you had $20,000 worth of travel and maybe clothes for different appearances and just related expenses, you could write that off and you wouldn't be paying tax on 100 grand. You'd be paying tax on 80 grand, which is several $1,000s worth of tax. But it's important that you get ahead of this rather than trying to go back and figure out how much money you made.
And most of them are going back to, I have friends that are going back years figuring things out.
Fun times.
Yeah, years. And it's just something that, even, and that's what's unique at the university that, I'm a professor at, is that there's a class like that. And sure, it's foundational, but there's a class to just remind them that this is important, because usually when you go to a great conservatory, you go to music school, nobody's teaching you this. They're just teaching you to be an amazing musician. So then you get out there and, and it's scary. All of a sudden you want to buy a house, you want to buy a car, and you can't.
So I think that's probably the biggest beauty in what you do. Like we learned in our small business and startup workshop, the real realities and aspects of running a business. Whereas if you were to go to business school, they would teach you like the very basics about how to write a business plan. They would teach you business accounting, but they wouldn't teach you like how to speak with your clients and customers and how to follow up with them and things like that. And I think that real aspect of teaching is something that it takes a really long time to learn by doing.
Right.
Right. And so a lot of people aren't going to be able to last that long and learn the lessons and still continue doing that.
Right. Right.
Okay. What
All
other
right,
questions?
I got another one.
All right.
So the industry that you're working in is very top heavy, right?
Yeah.
And so you've got all these people that are talented, and probably even more of them that think that they're more talented than they are. Like, not to say that they aren't talented, but like the talent level that you need to have to make it to the absolute top is really high, and you need to combine that with some luck, right? So, like, you've got all these people that are expecting to make it to the top. Like, what are some like markets or professions or like kind of tangential industries that like some of your clients could work in besides just being like a top billing performing musician?
Yeah.
Because like not everybody gets to be an astronaut.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. And I mean, they say whoever they, is, it's about 4% anyway that make it to some type of celebrity status, as a performer. But you can be a manager, you can be an artist development, you can be a writer, a composer, a band leader, a therapist, an arts therapist. There's casting directing. There's like all of these different things. It depends how they want to be of service. And it's like sounds like up in the clouds to say something like that, but it really depends how they would like to be of service. There is something there for them to do if it's not performance or education, because a lot of people think if you don't perform then you'll do education, or vice versa, but there's so many other things that they can do. Yeah.
So I want to go back a step. Oh shit! I totally lost my train of thought here. Damn, I was thinking about auto-tune for some reason. My question was not about auto-tune.
Well, let's talk about that.
But I listened to a podcast, How Stuff Works podcast, or Stuff You Should Know podcast about Cher. And apparently Cher was the first person to use auto-tune in an album, and that's what really brought it kind of into popularity. And then everybody was doing auto-tune. And I have a couple of guys in my office that are artists, and they are pretty heavily auto-tuned. Yeah. What are your thoughts on auto-tune? And then also making it like you may be mediocre, right? The lyrics could be good, but like your voice may not be great. Is that a plausible way to make it a few ladder runs higher in your career?
I mean, the Violent Femmes had success.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have success being average, and I've seen the opposite, and it just really depends how hard they're going to work, and what they're willing to do. And sometimes, and that luck, James, that you brought up, it's a personality thing too. Like, at the end of the day, it's all of service, right? So like if people feel good when they hear you, when they talk to you, they're not always thinking about just the talent, and Taylor Swift, for example, great singer, but if you think about why people are connected to her so much, you ask anybody, why do you love Taylor Swift? And they're like, oh, she speaks to me. And it's like, and I'm just so connected. And it very rarely do you hear people say anything about her voice. And even though her voice is great, but it's really just about that connection. So I say that to say that there are some people that might just be okay, but still have a way of connecting with people and do really, really well.
So I figured out what my question was.
Well, I want to go back because we never even got her answer about auto-tune.
Oh, well, the auto-tune, that's what I mean. Like, if you have to use auto-tune, go for it. It is what it is,
Auto-tune net positive or net negative on music?
I think I think it's whatever you would like. I mean, when I'm in the studio and I'm working with singers, I'm generally the one that's like, let's clean this up as much as possible so you don't have to use the auto-tune. But that's a preference. I mean, like, remember when T-Pain was like huge?
Yeah, but he made his career based solely on auto-tune.
Exactly.
He's basically an auto-tune artist where like auto-tune is basically an instrument for him,
Right.
compared
Right.
to other people who are using it to cover up flaws in technique or otherwise. So like
Yeah.
T-Pain's an exception where like he's kind of gone like meta with it.
Yeah. So what I was gonna say is that he got famous off of autotune, but he actually is pretty talented. You know, I heard him sing without autotune, and he's actually pretty talented. Yeah, and there's some people that use it to, you know, cover up some out of tune notes, but that's
But
also
I don't think T-Pain uses autotune for that reason.
right.
It's
He
really
uses
like
it
it's
like
a musical instrument that
That
he
was
is
said well.
playing.
That was said well.
overdone. Like
Huh?
it's overdone the autotune. So it's definitely like an instrument for him. But if somebody wants to cover up, you know, a few notes and that's what they want to do, hey, I mean, that's on them.
I've been informed that we need to announce the title of the episode.
Yeah.
Which I
Halfway
will,
through.
yeah. Well, you know, if anybody's watching, it should be labeled. But artists need to learn business to make it is the subject of the episode. On that note, because I got a lot more questions I got to ask you, I do have to. James, I don't know if you remember last week's bar trivia question.
I don't, but I think I got it pretty quick.
I think you answered it. So, Cassandra, what we do every week is we have a bar trivia question. This is the answer. This is basically just how we rope some people into watching us more than once.
Okay.
But I'll give you the question from last week. If you guys got it, which James, I think you did have it last week, let me know. Duncan Drivel was asked how many ducks he had. Well, he said, they just walked down that path and I didn't actually count them. But I remember one duck in front of two ducks, another duck behind two ducks, and another duck in between two ducks. How many ducks did Duncan have?
4.
Cassandra?
I thought 3. What is it?
The answer is 3.
Oh, okay.
I'll read it to you. I'll read it to you one more time. I remember one duck in front of two ducks, another duck behind two ducks, and another duck between two ducks.
So I guess 3 would be the minimum, but like
be the minimum.
In theory, there could like it's actually undefined because there could be 1,000.
There could be 900 other ducks, but the minimum number would be. Also, he accounted for 3 ducks. I remember one duck, and then a second duck, and then a third duck. He just said one duck, and then another, which is 3 ducks. However you want to take that one. So stay tuned for our bar trivia question at the end of this episode. I actually I like this one. I think it's going to be a good one. So we'll get there when we get there, if we have time. Otherwise, I'll be racing to get it off. Are we missing? So would you like to tell us a little more about kind of what is the rubric of your kind of
Actually, no. The question I have is, how do you monetize yourself here? Like you've got the salary from your job at a university, but like all this work that you do with individual artists, where does your income come from those interactions?
So actually the majority of my income comes from that. So I'm working with people one-on-one and also within groups for the mentorship program. So that one-on-one, you know, it's quite the majority of like what I'm doing throughout the week. I also have staff. So it got to a point where I couldn't handle the amount of students that was coming my way.
Well, this was happening while you were away for a week in Oklahoma, right?
Right. And by that point, like I had things in place, you know, I have an assistant, I have staff, like, you know, so they were handling things while I was away. Yeah. But prior to that, I mean, I've been doing this long enough. I've been coaching for quite a bit. So my reputation is there enough. Right. And so I
charge like an hourly rate for sessions, or do you have like royalty agreements where you get a certain cut of like
we don't need specific numbers.
Yeah, I have an hourly rate. I also have things online, you know, that I get royalties for. So, and then with the program, obviously they pay one lump sum, but it's like a bunch of them at once.
So I'm curious about the mentorship program. So you said it's 12 weeks.
12 weeks, but this is new. This is still in like that startup phase where we just finished the second cohort, which was 12 weeks. But after Oklahoma, after the blocks, I was like, this has got to be 4 to 6 weeks. So
Why
like
is that? To build kind of a something that you can build, measure, learn more quickly.
exactly, and also to have some form of an upsell, but also to just like break down the topics just a little bit more, and so it's just like digestible in like a short amount of time. So
I like the opportunity for the upsell. We got upsold during the blocks. You know this, right?
Yes, and I did it. I'm doing it.
What?
So listen, there was a lot of agendas that were kind of happening over the course of the week, right? We were effectively part of a venture capital firm's like grooming, I guess, where they could identify whether or not we were investable and build some of us into positions where we were investable. But for us, from our perspective, it was a great learning experience. I think literally everybody that was there that I talked to was like, this was a great learning experience. So they weren't doing it under this kind of false veil of we're going to teach you something and then we're going to see if you're worth investing. It was a real valuable experience. I think we've made that pretty clear. But they also attempted an upsell to bring us into the graduate school, which is a much more in-depth, smaller group. So there was 90 teams and like 140 people in total, because some of the teams had 2 people on them. In our group, I think this is like a group of a dozen people or something.
I think there's like 20, 24, something like that.
And that's happening in Kansas City, right?
Right. So I'll be doing the December one.
So it's very interesting that you were literally just talking about building an upsell into your business, and then you're telling me now that you got upsold, which is worth it. I was ready to do it. I have to get a little more traction with my business so that it's valuable to me. I really want to do it, but I just you're deeper into your business than I am with mine. Which, by the way, James, we could talk maybe a little about this afterwards. But and Cassandra, you knew that I was designing this wooden game board. So I'm going to give 2 plugs right now. Listen up, guys. One, if you're interested in SipTalk, you can visit SipTalkPodcast.com. You can check out our merch and you can buy us a drink. That's generally how we don't make money and don't sell merch, but we might if you go there. But the business that I went to the blocks for was Meesify, which is now here's what I never got good at over the whole course of the week was explaining the business. But it is a company where we sell quality wooden game boards and other products that kind of allow you to be in the moment and spend quality time with your friends and family. And on top of the game boards, there's some other peripheral things that we're selling as well. I can hear James typing Meesify Home. I didn't even. Oh, Raj. Okay, it's MeesifyHome.com. MYSAFY. But so the delivery came last week. I took a day off of freaking work, and I have a 2-car garage, which both bays of the garage are completely packed. There's a small path where you can kind of walk through them. So they're all here. Now so that's very exciting for me because I basically went and did this business building class before the product even arrived. Wow. So I just thought I'd share that. Very exciting for me. So if you guys are interested in this product, check out MeesifyHome.com. They're also available on Amazon. You just have to search Meesify. I'll throw that in the chat so you guys see it.
And where do I come in on this?
I was just sharing with you that these freaking things showed up. I'm really happy about it. I'm really happy about that.
This is like Gen 2, right?
So Cassandra, this is more about you, but I get a little plug here. So every year around the holidays, we do a holiday gift guide. Where I hate holiday. We did this because every year I'm looking for things to buy for people. And every holiday gift guide is just kind of the sponsored kind of mash of bullshit gifts. And I'm like, nobody needs a cheap pair of slippers. Like everybody's got it's not a good gift. Like, it's just because you found them for like $13 at TJ Maxx doesn't make me feel good, right? That's not a good gift. So don't put that on your gift. So we started building this. So either way, 2 years ago, James was like, oh, I got this one I want to put on the list. It's called Crokinole. And I'm like, that's got to be shit. I've never heard of it. So I mean, if I haven't heard of it, I'm like, I can't be that, whatever. So I looked it up, and the game boards sell for $300 and $400, They're almost 3 feet wide, and they sell for $300, $400. They're a circular game board where you kind of flick little discs into a center hole. But I looked them up, and they're actually really popular. It's a Canadian game that's kind of gaining traction in the United States market, and the U.S. market is pretty damn big. So I looked into having them designed and built, and my first product was a little less than a minimally viable product. It was not viable. So, and mostly what was not viable was the packaging. So every time it shipped, it was destroyed in shipping, and it was all through Amazon, and they would not eat the cost of the product.
So you did.
So I did, yeah. So I had to redesign, and now I have 2 different products. And then
I'm expecting royalty checks at some point in the future, considering I'm the one who gave you this idea.
Well, I would be open to that idea if you wanted to split some of the expenses. You have to cut me a check first.
Well, considering you didn't take any of my advice early on, I don't feel like I should have to.
I'm going to give you one more embarrassing thing for me. I'll give you one more embarrassing thing for me. Then we have to pivot here. Yeah. So the advice that James gave me a few months ago, I told him how poorly the product was performing in the Amazon store, and he said, you have to close it. You got to remove the product. And I said, dude, there's so much product there. I can't. What am I going to do with it? So either way, I finally decided it was right. I got to pull this product, especially the new one inbound. I didn't want the reputation of the old one being kind of side
Which
by
was
side
my point. It's like, dude, if you're
one.
shipping products that are just going to get you bad reviews and people aren't happy, that's going to cost you more than just eating the cost of a bad product.
So 2 weeks ago, I had gotten an email saying the new delivery was coming. It was a full truckload, like a full tractor trailer's worth of product, and to be expecting a call from the people delivering, the trucking company delivering it. So I got a call, and I arranged to take the day off, and the truck pulled in. I looked in the truck, and all the boxes on this truck looked just as shitty as the original ones that I got. And I was like, oh, are you kidding me? There's 7 pallets that are like 7 feet, 8 feet tall, full of the exact same shitty product. I got ripped off again. Well, what I did not realize was actually this was Amazon delivering all of the old stuff to me.
Oh, wow.
So that was the old stuff. But I had kind of a false alarm. I thought I was getting all the new cool ones. And then when they opened that truck up and I saw all the old boxes, I was like, oh my God, I just dropped how much money? What a huge life mistake. Luckily it was the old ones. The old ones are here. They're in the barn. To never be seen again, hopefully, until that thing burns down. So back to you, Cassandra. Let's talk more about. So you do. I thought you had done, because you talk about artists. I thought that was kind of a wider term to include actors.
Right.
But I'm sure some of this translates into acting as well, but it's vastly, predominantly music.
Well, because I'm the face of it. So originally I did want it to be for actors, dancers, choreographers, like anyone. But right now, where it is, especially that we're just in that we're just finishing the second cohort. The majority of the people that are signing up are musicians, because it's coming from a rapport that I have with them. So it's the client success. So they are the ones that they were clients of mine in the past, and they now decided to invest in this program. So
you're in South Florida.
I am in Miami.
And are most of your clients in South Florida, or do people travel to come down for this program? And also the 12-week program, are these like day-long classes?
No, they're just a couple hours. And what's really interesting is that it kind of and then I'll come back to the Miami.
Sorry, that was kind of a two-parter.
It's okay. The going to the blocks was really interesting because a lot of how I wanted artistic freedom mentorship program to look like, the blocks was actually doing. So it was really interesting to see that, because in the program we have the lecture, and then we have what we call creative development. Creative integration. So we have the lecture and then creative integration. And then, we have the creative connect, which if you remember how the blocks worked, we had the lecture, then we went in to our pods to integrate it, act within us, right? And then we also had the round table. So it was almost replica of like how I see artistic, what I'm doing and how I see it moving. So it was really interesting to watch and see that live, and in person.
So you're going to be using some of these techniques.
Well, I had them in place, but the way they did it, maybe I'll use some of it, right? But I have no desire to make it a competition or anything like that. It would be no desire for that.
Well, I don't know if that would play it as well. But it's funny you mentioned that, because I went to the blocks for this board game company, and literally since I've been back, almost every waking hour, most nights until after midnight, I have actually spent time building my real estate business, and I do a lot of real estate training. And there are some commonalities with kind of the lesson and then the application. So now I've really doubled down. I've been building a new training program, very much like the style. So I got a lot. I got a lot from what they taught us, but also through the experience.
Right, and just like watching that and feeling that, yeah.
And one thing, sorry. Just real quick, what I was going to say. One thing that I really took that affected me a lot was the connections that we made. The fact that you and I are doing this with James here, but the fact that we're still talking and it's 2 months later, I want to be able to, in my training, create an environment where people can connect like that as well, so they become their own support system.
Exactly.
Moving forward.
Exactly. And that's an aspect of my program. So even now, to your question of like, are they mostly in Miami? So it's right now, this is fully online. So they're everywhere, but what's been cool is to watch how some of them that are in the same city meet up for coffee and then send a picture, in the group chat. And it's been really cool to see that. And ultimately, if you think about like, how the blocks was, and the reason why we connect like this is because it felt like we found our tribe. We can talk about the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur and not feel like someone is not understanding you. And that's the same thing in the program when it comes to artistry and dealing with the ups and downs. Now they're in a group where they're understood, so it's cool. It's just, yeah, I love it.
All right, lighter question here.
Yes.
What instruments are the most profitable to learn?
It's interesting.
Voice. I would say voice. Voice and piano. Voice and piano.
Really?
Yeah. And so here's the thing. For vocalists, there are a million vocalists, but they do tend to get paid more. And so it just might be harder to get into certain circles or whatever, but they do tend to get paid more. And also, even as a vocal coach, my fiance is a trumpeter. I mean, and he's like, Michael Bublé's trumpeter. He's amazing. But we've talked about the just the thought that it's a bit easier for me to have so many students where I now have to hire a staff. It's not the same for trumpet and saxophone and clarinet, but I would have that, and also piano, would be the same. So a pianist, we always need a pianist, maybe guitar too, but we generally always need a pianist. It depends what genre you're in. If you're doing jazz, generally you need a bass, a bass player, so it just depends also the genre. But I would definitely say voice and piano, because the voice is an instrument for sure.
So I have a question for you. What's your musical artistry background?
Yeah.
And how did you fall into the teaching and coaching and mentorship?
Yeah. So I started off in opera. Okay. So I studied classical music in undergrad, and middle school and high school. Like I did all of that. Still, from a very early age, I knew I was going to get into teaching and mentorship. I always said that if it just so happened that, music, there was a talent there, and it was like the seed of where I am today. But if it were science, I probably would be doing this for science. I probably would have been doing it for anything because it was just something that was like inside of me that I knew that I always wanted to do. I mean, I was the one as a kid, like, putting postcards in the mailboxes of like the neighborhood kids would come over and I would tutor them, so I was doing that. But I also was selling lollipops, so I still had that, also that entrepreneurial. Yeah, I still had that.
How much did the lollipop go for?
25 cents then or something, but like I was the one doing that, like asking my mom to go to like Costco and like, get the big things of, I would sell them. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you'd like to share? Because we kind of asked our own questions about your business, but is there anything else that you'd like to share about the business that maybe we missed? Maybe we have a hole in our understanding of what it is that you do.
Well, I would just like to give a plug for Artistic Freedom Mentorship Program. It's artisticfreedommentorship.com. And really it's just navigating the industry, resilience, confidence, like how to navigate all of that. You're with your own tribe. There's networking and all of that, just moving through that in lectures and integration, application, and all of that. And if you're a musician that would like to that just needs a push and needs a little bit of help to stay in the industry, confident in the industry and going all for it, this is a program.
So I got a question for you. I'm told we got to get ready to wrap up soon. So I got to ask a bar trivia question for this week. But the question that I had for you was the aspect of networking and meeting people and putting yourself in whatever room or whatever group of people. Could you tell me a little more about like how does one network? Because I feel like that's a really easy concept to grasp, and then you kind of sat, the next night at your computer going, okay, networking step one is what?
That's a good question, because it would come in performance. It would come in through your experience, like getting out there and performing or speaking, but also school, because it's just like a program, you're in this program and that's a network, but if you decide to go to school and do it, and it's just, you're building your network from there. So just anyone that you're meeting in the industry in whatever realm, that's the networking that starts to come along. And even your professors, your teachers, your mentors, all of that is part of the network. So I can say, go to networking events, and sure, that's great, but it's really going to be mainly with the people that you're spending time with in this industry.
Yeah, I find that the networking events never really deliver.
Right.
On the real network, that you always just kind of end up meeting people that are looking to take value from you.
Right.
Especially in the real estate world, whereas it's like the conversations you have with literally every other person.
Well, I'll back up Cassandra on this one about like professors. Is if you're in school for something, your professors know so many people in that industry, and they are hugely helpful. Like,
right.
And somewhat recently, I experienced that, and it feels recent, but it wasn't. But yeah, like I went back to school for accounting maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, and like I got my first main job in accounting by recommendation of a professor, and then I went from there. But she was really helpful, and like I would tell anybody, and this is not just accounting, this is literally any industry, is your professors came from that world that you want to go into. They know people that can help you.
Right.
And their job is to help you.
Right. And really quickly, because I know we have to wrap up, but like I say to my students, try to be on your best behavior too, because like in the sense of like showing up on time and doing all of that, because we remember that as well. When
you want the teacher to have your back.
Yeah, because like as a teacher, you don't want to recommend like to somebody to get a job, and then like, this guy shows up late like 3 times a week to my class. So how late is he going to be to this job? I don't want to sit like this business isn't going to respect my recommendations if this guy washes out in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
On the networking thing, I told in the class I taught last Thursday, I was explaining to the agents that everybody complains that it's not how hard you work or how good you are, it's who you know. And that's exactly the fucking point. So like work hard on meeting the people that obviously you have to be good, right? You have to work hard, you have to be good. But there's a certain level that above that, it doesn't matter that much, right? And especially like as real estate agents, like it's not quantum mechanics. It's not, being a vocal prodigy.
Right.
You're just kind of unlocking doors and touring people around, which there is.
Of course.
There is a lot more to it, but at the end of the day, like you don't need to be a savant and know the square footage of every listing that's currently
right.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely who you know, but you have to have the skill as well. What you said. So
let me get off this bar trivia question so it's in time. Rosh has got a question for you. We'll hit that next. So the bar trivia question. This is a math question. Ben and Carl were in a 100-meter race. When Ben crossed the finish line, Carl was only at the 90-meter mark. Ben suggested they run another race. This time, Ben would start 10 meters behind the starting line. All other things being equal, will Carl win, lose, or will it be a tie in the second race? I'll read it to you one more time. Ben and Carl were in a 100-meter race. When Ben crossed the finish line, Carl was only at the 90-meter mark. So Ben said, let's run another race. This time, I'll start 10 meters behind the starting line. Everything else will be the same. I like this one, actually. So in the second race, will Carl win? Will it be a tie? Or will Carl lose?
I know the answer.
All right, don't answer.
And I know the margin of victory.
I feel like Carl was Carl the one who won the first time?
No, Ben won by 10 meters on the first race.
So he's going to start 10 meters behind on the second race. So if you want to answer the question, you got to go to SipTalkPodcast.com. You click on bar trivia. You will log your answer. I'll pull it up right now. I'll update the answer. So by the time you're hearing this, it will be live on SipTalkPodcast.com. If we get a winner who explains to me the math, I will send them a SipTalk pint glass.
I could use a pint glass. I could do it right now.
So Rasha's got a question for Cassandra here. Do you have guest speakers in the industry that come and speak to your students?
Yes, I do. So
I'm not that short on time. You can
yeah, I mean, I do, and I have to, right? So like, I think that's like important, and I know people in the industry to come in and speak. It's important for them to even get that experience. I don't come across and come in as if I know every single thing and they have to learn everything from me only. I am about giving value. So I have to have guest speakers. Yes. Yeah.
All right, cool. So that's James. You have more questions here?
No, not really. I was thinking like something that came up in a conversation I had with my mother earlier this week, but I think is applicable to what you were talking about in the networking is like, and this goes more into the category of soft skills. And I was thinking about how like so much in life in terms of how you're perceived and how a message gets across is not the content, but it's the delivery.
Yeah.
And like you can think about all sorts of artists that have terrible reputations for how they treat people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can see other artists that treat people well. And generally, this is not a hard rule, but generally, the people that treat other people well do better.
Of course. I would definitely say it's the rapport that I have with people. I mean, yes, I have the skills and the degrees and all of that stuff, but I would definitely say it's the experience that people have with me that has brought the success that I have, for sure. For sure. It's just that connection. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, guys, I think we're at the last few seconds here, so I want to thank you, Cassandra, for coming.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad this episode went pretty well. It felt very professional of us for a podcast where we were
really.
So, but I enjoyed having you on. Thank you for coming. Just a quick plug: Sassy, Classy, Cassie,
and Cassie with an IE, but everything else is the Y.
Sassy, Classy, Cassie on Instagram And then give me the website again for your school.
artisticfreedommentorship.com.
Oh, one last thing.
You get
completely unrelated, although like it is related to her name. Cassandra, are you familiar with the Greek myth of Cassandra?
It's like something with like confusing men or something, I think is what I heard. But what is it?
Look it up, because your name is my second favorite Greek myth.
Oh, okay. I'll look it up.
Wow, you made it to the end. Thank you for making it this far. I appreciate you sticking with us. Check out SipTalkPodcast.com. Check out some of the merch. Answer the bar trivia question if you can. And thank you again. See you next time. Adios.